fellow collectors, and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we are taking a look at the construction engineering team from Xin Nan Xing. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I'm probably not, so apologies. And basically, I'm hesitant to use the word KO because it's not a direct knockoff of any already existing toy as far as I know. This seems to be something fairly original, but it is 6 construction vehicles, each with their own individual robot modes that also have a combined mode. I found it on Amazon. I think it was like $30, and then there was like an immediate coupon you could redeem for like $25 or something. I just thought it looked fun and colorful, and I thought for $25, why not give it a shot? What intrigued me the most was that it is the exact same 6 vehicles that make up Devastator in the exact same 6 positions. So like, you know, the crane, the dump truck here, the excavator and the bulldozer, you have the front loader, the cement mixer, all in the exact same positions, which I think is kind of funny. And just the fact that it was so colorful and, you know, the big dopey Disney car eyes on all the vehicles, I don't know, it just looked fun. I decided to give it a try. 6 Chariots Aggregation Fire. Funny story, there were only 2 reviews on this product on the Amazon listing, and both of them said garbage, do not buy. So that also, I was like, well, now I have to get it because there's only 2 reviews and they both say it's terrible. I have to check it out. I don't know why. But yeah, they have really basic names: cranes, excavator, bulldozer, truck, forklift, and mixer. So they don't really have inventive names. But like I said, it was $25 and it just looked so colorful and fun. I had to give it a shot. So let's get everything out of the box and see if it's even worth $25. We'll take a closer look. So here are the 6 vehicles out of the packaging. I just wanted to show them all together. I think the biggest appeal of this set, to me at least, is just, you know, all the different colors. We have 6 different colors there, which I think is really fun. And then you can see the giant, goofy, googly Cars eyes. Although I have to say, this one does not have anything like that. So I think it's kind of funny that 5 out of the 6 have, you know, giant eyes like Disney's Cars, but not the bulldozer for some reason. So I don't know. I would say they're all roughly the same size. A few are a little bit smaller, a few are a little bit bigger, but I would say Cranes here is probably the average size for the set. And I would say he's probably the same size as a deluxe class Transformer in vehicle mode. Just to showcase that, here is Transformers Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Hotshot. And you can see that they are pretty much the same size there. So I will get into the accessories real quick. Each one comes with their own weapon. So Cranes has this little spear, and we'll take a closer look when I dive into each one individually here. But I just wanted to go through the accessories real quick. The Excavator has this really cool axe. Then we have Bulldozer, who has this green sword, which I have to say, this one's a little flimsy, but we'll get into it. Truck, appropriately named, has this kind of sword piece here that really is just going to become a waist piece for the combined mode. And then we have Forklift, who I really don't think is a forklift, but he's got this pretty cool hammer. And then we have Mixer, who has this sword here, which is not bad. And then the last thing that they have for accessories is the hands for the combined mode. So I have one left hand here. You can see it's got a ball joint for the thumb, which is actually kind of cool. And it's got, you know, separated finger joints. And then I've got a second left hand with no thumb. So off to a great start there. So that's pretty much it for the accessories. I'm going to go ahead and just jump into these each one at a time. So we'll start with Cranes. All right, so here is Cranes. You know, decent paint applications. I will say, though, this set, the paint is very sloppily applied in some spots. And because of that, you know, it's worn off in places, or there's spots of paint on places where it's not supposed to be. So, like I said, it's not, you know, the cleanest in that regard in terms of the paint applications. The plastic quality is not super cheap, but it's not super sturdy either. It's just kind of somewhere in between. Certain parts feel thinner than others. But I've been messing around with this set for, you know, a day or so now, and I haven't broken anything, knock on wood, yet. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, you got the giant eyes here on the front, just kind of creepily staring straight at you. let's go ahead and do the transformation. So we're going to lift this up. This is the kind of crane section here. And then you can kind of unpeg the feet. And then you can flip this whole section around. You can see that there were 2 tabs right here that were pegged into these spots here on the bottom of the feet. So this will spin around. Then the whole foot section here, there's actually a piece in the back, will also come forward like so. Then you can split the legs apart like that, but don't split them apart at the crotch. Let me zoom out here. And then these sections you have to kind of lift up. Now you have to be a little careful because the shoulders here are actually tabbed onto a little tab that's part of the shoulder. So you kind of have to pop this away first. You can see this tab was pegged into this area here. Then you can bring these forward. If you try to just bring it straight forward, you can see where it's tabbed in there. So you would snap that off. So just kind of pop that off, and then you can bring this down. And then you're going to want to, you can see the combined head there. Just hide that back with the crane. And then you can swivel this around and swivel this around. And there is your robot mode for cranes. It's not bad, honestly. It's not bad. The head, I thought the head swiveled, but I guess not. So you have this here on the back of the head, which is really just meant to hang there on the back. But you have a joint here for the shoulder. You have a ball joint at the actual shoulder. You have a ball joint in the elbow. Nothing in the waist. There's no waist swivel. You have a very limited ball joint here in the hip, and that's really just because it hits into the rest of the crotch blade here. You have a thigh swivel. You have pretty much, I would say, 180 degrees in the knee because of how it transforms. There's no tilt or anything, but you have some decent heels back here, so he can kind of stand. The head sculpt is, you know, kind of comically large, but not bad. Paint applications could be a little better. Not terrible. I feel like there's a little bit of a section here in the center that they missed or something. But like all the white paint applications I think are pretty good. Like I said, you can see some of the splotches in certain areas. It definitely feels like the paint was, you know, done quickly. But there's a decent amount of paint applications. I mean, you have the hands here painted silver. The white here. Everywhere there's white is painted. Down here in the crotch is painted. The head's decently painted. You have the larger combined head that's painted. So, I mean, you know, could be worse. And then he has his spear, which has a little bit of red paint on it. Otherwise, it's just a pretty basic spear. Now, getting it into his hand is kind of difficult because it's very tight. But you can pop it in there. It's kind of easy to pop it in, but it should theoretically be able to go all the way through the hand because the holes you can see are drilled all the way through. But I feel like the further you push this down, the more difficult it's going to be to eventually get back out of there. So I'm not going to do that. But honestly, I mean, when you think about it, if this whole set was $25 and there's 6 figures in here, then each one of these is like $4 to $5. I feel like for $4 to $5, it's a pretty decent little robot mode with pretty decent articulation. I mean, yeah, the paint applications aren't perfect. But, you know, it's kind of fun. I'm having fun with it. Yeah, I will say this one knee is very loose, though. That is one thing that's kind of a bummer. This one's not nearly as bad, but this one. But he can still stand. I mean, luckily he's got those big heels. So there you go. That's cranes. All right, up next is Excavator. So he's got kind of much tinier eyes down here in this little section. And they definitely look sinister. He is not pleased. You have the scoop here. So you have a bit of articulation there. You have a bit of articulation there. And then you have a bit there. So, I mean, I feel like that's fairly decent. None of these pieces really move around. Like the treads or anything don't work. This can swivel, though. So if you want that to swivel around, you can. Decent paint applications, but again, like I said, you can see there are splotches here, places where they didn't quite hit it or it's rubbed off since then. It feels like the white in particular, because it's on usually dark colored plastic, they probably could have done it with another coat or something like that. But like the darker colors like purple seem to be relatively unaffected. So we are going to start by popping these away from the side. And then you can flip this section up to about there. I'm going to take these sections here. You can see that they're sticking out because they're going to fold up into this cavity here, and then they kind of sit flush. So flip this up like that, and then you have the arms that you can move around. So move that around. Flip the head up like so. Then we are going to, let me remember how this goes. This flips up and fills in. Hold on, this has, there we go, like this, and then this folds up, and then this flips up here. Now, there are a couple different ways you can do this. The directions say to leave it like this, so that the shovel part kind of covers the crotch. If you like, you can do it more like this. And if you do it more like this, I feel like this sits more flush. Like, I feel like this was definitely intended to kind of be like his chest here. And I feel like this all sits a lot nicer. But then the problem is that this is very kind of disjointed. And then, you know, this is kind of hitting into this because this is in the way. So if you leave it more like this, you get a little bit more out of the hip rotation. So it's up to you. Personally, I think it looks better like this. But I think functionally, it's a little better like that. But anyway, you're just going to turn these and then flip these down to form feet. So turn this and then flip this down. And then these pieces, these are all for the arm connections later on. So you can kind of do whatever you want with them. If you want to leave them as is, you can. If you want to fold them down so they're not in the way, you can do that too. It really doesn't matter. However you cosmetically like the look of that, but here we go. This is Excavator, and he has got the axe. Let's find the axe here. That plugs into his hand actually really simply. Head sculpt is not bad. A little bit better painted than Crane's was. All of the paint here on the chest I think is pretty good. Now the packaging shows that this is white, and I don't know if they did just a very base level of white and it just turned out like an orchid color because the plastic was purple. I'm not sure. Or they meant to do it that way. I don't know, but some decent paint applications here. Head does not move. You have a ball joint here in the shoulder, ball joint in the elbow. Obviously not much in the waist, although this piece moves because they wanted to give you the movement for the vehicle mode, and that doesn't really lock into place in any way, which is kind of a bummer. Then you have a ball joint down here in the hip, and then you have a ball joint in the knee, and then you have a little bit of ankle movement just because of how it transforms, but nothing side to side or anything like that. So, but yeah, he's not bad. I feel like he got away a little bit cleaner in terms of like paint blotches and things like that. Just the tiniest little bit here on the feet, but in the robot mode, you really don't see those at all. And I really do like his axe. I think that came out great. That's got some nice paint on it. So yeah, this is Excavator. Up next is Bulldozer, and he is, for whatever reason, the only one that doesn't have giant cars, googly eyes on him anywhere. The shovel, unfortunately, is very loose on mine. You can move it around and do different things, and, you know, depending on the configuration, it's a little bit less loose, but that's mostly just because it's already hanging down as far as it can go. Rolls fairly decently. Not really much to this mode. What we're going to do is lift this section all the way around, like so. This will flip around. This section was like this. Now this goes like this. I'm going to split the legs apart. There we go. And then this is on a slide, so you're going to want to push that down. And it's a little tight, and it can be a little scary, but that goes like that. And then we'll do the same thing over here, so you can see the screw right there. So you push this down along that screw. And then you lift the arms out. They pegged in there on the side into that. And then this whole section will slide down to reveal the head. And then you can bring these down. Keep these out to the side like so. Now, when it comes to the bucket on the back, you have a few options. You could kind of bring it all the way down like this and tuck it up like that. That's kind of the way I would like to do it, but unfortunately, because it's so loose, it's just going to fall down. So what I usually do is something like this, to kind of give him that scrapper look, because that way it's already hanging down and that's as far as it'll go. Yeah, so he's not bad. He is kind of the shortest and smallest of the crew. Well, he's definitely one of the smaller ones. Head sculpt, not bad. The eyes are painted a little weird in my opinion. Got a little bit of yellow paint there. And I feel like this isn't... It feels like this should drop down a little bit further, like the head's not fully revealed, but I think that's just how it was done. So you have a pin here for this to swivel. Then you have a ball joint here, and I guess what is the actual shoulder, and then he's got the tiniest little hands ever, but he's got a ball joint there. And then you've got a ball joint in the hip. Now you have a mushroom peg here, and it looks like there's a ridiculous amount of space, like you need to push this in. But no, they just made the mushroom peg too long. So it's actually where it's supposed to be. There's just a giant gap there. And then the foot, you have a little bit of movement here. But that because that goes all the way through, it kind of acts as heels, which is kind of nice. And I like the purple here for the chest. I think that looks good. He comes with a sword that's got some nice red paint on it. Now, this sword is very thin, and I will say it's a little difficult to get into the hand here. So definitely careful with that, because it feels like you might want to twist it a little bit to get a little bit deeper, but it feels like it's going to get stuck. So I like to just kind of just gingerly put it in there just so it can hold, but it can also be pulled out fairly easily. But yeah, he's not bad. He's definitely very short and squat, but I definitely like the... This is the other problem. Because of the way this transforms, like it can move up and down, but if you try to move it forward, you have to kind of like bend it around because it's got the pieces on the side, so you kind of have to like bring it out, then kind of come forward a little bit, something like that. It can work. You can get it to go, but yeah, he's definitely very short, very squat, but he's kind of like a bruiser. At least that's how I envision him. He's not bad. So this is Bulldozer. Next up is, you guessed it, Truck, the aptly named. He's got like a little bit of the eyes here, but honestly, I feel like they get drowned out a little bit. So if you just look at this right away, you don't necessarily see them on the headlights there. Like if you're just kind of looking at it, it just kind of looks like a truck, but they are there. The eyes are painted there on the headlights. I have no idea what these pieces are for. They're here. They can move around. They're on a little ball joint. I don't know if they're supposed to be missiles or something, or smokestacks or what, but they're weird, and they're here, and they don't really serve a purpose, but they are here. Alright, so he is a truck, as you may have guessed. He rolls fairly nicely. We'll go ahead and get into the transformation here. So these flip up. You can see that they have little tabs, and there are tab spots in here that you can try to tab them into, but I feel like it never works. These are going to just pop up here and just sit flush in this area here like so. Then you want to bring this part down. It can be a little difficult because they have these black pieces here on the edge of like these bars here on the side of this piece here. And they think that's to kind of keep these in line. But then when you have to kind of move these around them, it gets a little difficult. So I usually have trouble with this. Just kind of do what you can to get these pieces past, and then you can extend out the legs. I don't really know why they designed it like that. I don't know that these serve any real purpose, so I guess maybe you could try to shave those parts off if you wanted to. But you can see we've extend the legs like this. Now this is going to kind of accordion down, so you can see that there's a tab right here, and that's going to tab in there, so you just kind of push this down like this, and then that will all tab into place there like so. And as you can see, you're pretty much done at this point. You're going to unpeg the arms from each other, bring this up, do whatever with these. These will swivel around, and then drop this down. And once again, you can put these up. I kind of like to put them up because that way they don't get in the way of the elbow articulation. But you can do with them as you please. They do not really serve a purpose. And then just flip the head up. And there you go. There is Truck. I think he's pretty cool. He's definitely bulky, but he's got pretty good articulation. His head actually can move because his head is on a ball joint, so he can look side to side. I think it's a pretty fun head sculpt. I think it's nicely painted. I think they actually did a pretty good job. You can see the red's a little messed up there, but honestly not that bad. You have a swivel here for the shoulder because of the transformation. You have a ball joint swivel here for the shoulder. You have a ball joint in the elbow. He doesn't have anything in the waist, but he's got movement here. And I think it's because he's going to be the main, leg section for the combined robot, which is why he's got such solid articulation here. He's got a nice kind of a ratchet. It's not like you don't an audible click ratchet, but it's a decent ratchet. And then he's got the bend there. And then there's going to be connection pieces down here that we'll run into later. But yeah, for the most part, I think he's pretty solid. I like the robot mode. And then he's got this big sword piece here that you can pop onto here. Now this one definitely has some paint splotches is what I'm trying to say. This one I think is kind of the worst. There's some mess up here, mess up over here. I think on the back there's some green. But there's a lot of paint applications on it, and it looks like those paint applications look good. It's just a shame that it got a little messy. I don't know if that's just in transit or while it was happening, but he's definitely got that giant sword there, which kind of suits him. I mean, like I said, he's a little bit bigger and bulkier, so I feel like if any of the figures could pull off this giant sword, it would be him. But there you go. That is Truck. So up next we have Forklift. And I'm pretty sure this is not a forklift. I've driven a forklift, and this is not a forklift. Pretty sure this is just like a front loader or something, or maybe another bulldozer. I'm not 100% sure, but I know this is not a forklift. In any case, he's got the giantest car's eyes out of the bunch, in my opinion. But he's also got some of this blue splotch everywhere. The blue really, I think, bled onto a lot of different things. I think because they had to put a lot of it on there. But it's a bit of a mess, but it's not the worst. We're going to start by disconnecting these, and then we will disconnect these two from each other and swivel them out to the side. And then you can see right here we can push the head up. Now, unfortunately, this is loose, and so it's funny, it won't come all the way down because the back of the head hits into the plastic there, but it won't stay all the way up. Now, when I transform the rest of this, it helps, but it's still not perfect. So we're going to bring these out to the side, and then this whole section is going to flip around, and then this is going to come up. And if you can get this to come up like this and keep this going around, hold on, this needs to come around all the way like this, and then this has to come up like that, and that kind of keeps it in place there, but it's not perfect. We're going to spin these around and flip them up just like with Excavator. They're pretty much the same legs. And then you're going to just straighten out the arms like so. And there we go. Let me zoom out here a bit. And then really, again, you can kind of do what you like with these. I think the directions for him actually say to leave them up like this. But here is Forklift. I like the color scheme, and I kind of like the head sculpt, honestly. Again, the paint applications are a little messy, but he can actually look side to side, which is kind of cool. And then you have some nice paint here on what is his chest. You have a ball joint here in the shoulder. You have a ball joint in the elbow. This blue, I think, came out nice over here. He's got a little bit of silver for the fist. Like, those paint applications are nice. It's just a little messy in spots. I think just because it's a darker color getting put onto yellow, and I feel like they had to kind of cake it on a little bit, so the yellow didn't bleed through. But I think the fists and everything turned out nice. You don't have anything in the waist, but you do have ball joints here in the hips, and then you have a ball joint in the knee, and then you have a little bit of movement there in the ankle. But overall, I think he looks kind of cool. And then he comes with this giant hammer, which I think actually looks kind of nice. Again, paint applications look a little messy, a little splotchy and spots. I can't talk today. Go ahead and pop that in. That fits really nicely into his hand. So yeah, overall, not too bad. This is Forklift. Kinda. Alright, so last up here we have Mixer. And he's got some giant green eyes here on the front windows. The drum here can spin, which I know is probably hard to actually show on camera, but yes, it does spin. Rolls, fairly well. I kind of like how the back wheels here are kind of covered. I think that looks kind of neat. Most of the robot mode is right there underneath, but we'll go ahead and get into the transformation. Oh, the one thing that's kind of cool about him is you can actually store the weapon on the side of the vehicle, which is something that not really any of the others can do, but I thought that was kind of cool. And it has to do with how he holds it, because this is actually his hand, and he doesn't have fists, and the way this weapon is, he couldn't hold it if he did, so it pegs into the side of his hand, which is why you can store it on the side in vehicle mode. But basically, this is going to flip around just like this, and then it's going to split in half. These sections are going to pop out, and you can see that they have like a double hinge here. And then this is going to come around and serve a dual purpose of covering up the goofy giant eyes, but also giving him kind of toes for his robot feet. Coming to this section here, we're going to unpeg the hands from the back here, like this. And then you have a couple different options. So I think the directions officially say to just rotate these around. Now, the way that I think this is kind of a problem, so you can see that there's a tab slot right there, and there are these tabs here on the side, and they just really get in the way of like everything. So if you're trying to move this around, you have to be really wary of those tabs, because they really get in the way of everything. So I think officially you're supposed to leave his arms like this. What I kind of like to do is bring these around and fold these back like this, and then you can put those on the back, and it just kind of frees up a little bit more room here. So whatever you prefer to do. Also, if you do it that way, you can kind of not have to move those around as much, and you can just, oop, that was almost bad, flip this around like this. Just kind of unpeg those pieces and then flip those around, and then you don't have to deal with the tabs getting in the way as much. So that's what I like to do. But this is Mixer. He does not have much in the way of the shoulders, so they can move front to back, but he can't really move out to the side or anything. And then he's got a ball joint here and these tiny little hands, or elbows, I guess. He does have a ball joint here, but because this thigh is so like thick front to back, you can't do much with it. He can kick backwards for some reason, but not really forward at all. I guess he can kick out to the side. And then he does have, I guess, knee articulation there. So he's very bulky, and as a result doesn't have much in terms of articulation. Or I should say, all his articulation is very hindered. He's got the same basic, joints that the others have, but he's very hindered. But head sculpt is interesting. I think they definitely messed up the paint on the eyes on mine because they're kind of coming down into the mouth. But you've got some white. I guess that's like a badge. He kind of reminds me of like a cop hat. Like he's got a badge there. Paint on the chest is actually kind of nice. The silver down here looks good, but they definitely messed up on the eyes a little bit. And I've got some flashing there on the wheel. So he's one of the weaker ones, in my opinion, in terms of the robot mode. But he's okay. And again, he does have this sword, which just pegs into the side of his hand, like so. So he can wield that sword, and that looks kind of cool. So he's not terrible, but I think he's one of the weaker ones, in my opinion. And that is Mixer. So I just wanted to do a quick group shot of all 6 of them together in robot mode before we got into the combination. And I'm starting to realize that I think it's kind of like the Sentai/Power Ranger fan in me that's enjoying this set, because they each have their own individual color. So it kind of just feels like a Sentai team of robots. But yeah, I think they're fun. I mean, like I said, if you think about the fact that they're only about $4 to $5 a piece, I think the amount of paint application and engineering that went into these is somewhat impressive. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're high quality toys, but I think for what you pay for them, they're not bad. But let's reserve judgment until we can go ahead and get into the fully combined mode. Alright, so I'm going to do the 2 legs first. I'm going to go ahead and remove the weapons and put them off to the side. So as you may have guessed, for both of these, it kind of makes sense to return them all the way to their vehicle mode, but I figured I would show you guys that in case you had any questions about how that works. So this just slides all the way back up, and then we're going to straighten this out so that this can come down, and then they will peg into the side. So there is a peg here on the side that does peg into a smaller peg here on the side of the hand. So again, we have to straighten that out, bring this in, peg those into the side, and then we have to push these back out. So those same screw pieces here that had the slider, we have to push these back out. There we go, and that should click when it hits the furthest spot. Then we can put all of this back together. There we go. And then this will flip around and just kind of sit in there like that. So once you have it back into the vehicle mode, all you're going to do is move the shovel down like this, and that's one leg. So now we come over here to mixer, and we will have to get the arms swiveled back up. So straighten this out like so, and then this long tab here will peg into this spot here on the side right there. So that pegs in there, and then this comes up, and you can see that this long tab is going to tab in right here. So do that over there. I didn't mention it before, but these smokestacks can move around, and I don't know what purpose that serves, but they can move around, just in case you were wondering. So spinning this around like so, and then bringing this over here so we can peg this in, and then bring this down and peg that in. And then we want to flip up these pieces. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So normally we would flip this up and then flip this up, and there's our vehicle mode. But instead, we need to flip this out, and then there's a second joint in here that we need to flip out, which can be a little difficult and might be easier to do one at a time if you prefer. So you have to flip that joint out, and now you have to bend this like this. And you see how there are these tiny little tabs right there? They are going to tab in right here and here. So this comes up and kind of situates in there like that. And there is your other leg, and you can see you got a nice heel back here. So here are your two legs. All right, next up we will do cranes and truck. I'm going to put cranes off to the side just for a moment. We'll focus in on truck first. So let me zoom in here and move this. So we're going to take his sword piece. We are going to flip this down, and then this kind of pops out to the side. You can kind of see how there's like a little tab here, and this will kind of like catch that and stop. And you can see how there was one over here. So it's kind of nice, like it just kind of pops out. And this is going to be kind of like a skirt piece for the front, and it'll actually end up tabbing in right there in a moment. So I'm going to just rotate the head back like this. We're going to transform the arms back the way that they were for vehicle mode. So this has to pop around, and then this folds down, and then you can see that that kind of notches in there. Again, I don't know what these pieces do, but I guess flip them up. This is going to come around, and then this will peg into the other hand like that, and then flip this up again. And then at this point, the only other thing to do is pop these out to the side. Now, these are actually on a slider. And it's hard to really do, but you're supposed to slide them all the way over. But it's really hard to do, and I kind of feel like I'm going to break something, so I don't usually. You don't actually have to. It doesn't really change anything, because basically you're just going to do this with the hips. Now, again, if you can slide those all the way over, it just looks a little bit cleaner. But it's really tight, and I can't get it to go. So I'm going to just leave it like this before I break something. We're going to come underneath here, and we've got these connectors down here. So we have to kind of flip these out, which can be a little difficult, but you'll get them eventually if you just keep trying. There we go. Flip around. And they're very tight, which is a good thing and a bad thing all at the same time. because you're going to want them tight for robot mode, but then at the same time, it's difficult to get the connectors out. So, okay, so he is good. We can go ahead and take this piece and peg it in here like that. And then we will put him off to the side. And now we have Cranes, and I think Cranes is the most difficult one to transform. We will take his little spear out. There we go. Put that off to the side. So, this is going to flip up. We'll come back to that in a minute. We have to flip the giant connector head out. That way we can split this in half. This will come around, flip these in, but you have to flip this piece up like this, and it'll kind of disconnect from that, and then it can do its own thing. So this has to go in like this. Then it has to bend around like this, and you can see that there's a spot right here which has to peg in right there, but it's very difficult to get this to bend all the way. I was hoping it would get easier the more I do it. Alright, that actually wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad. So this has to, before I do that, actually I need to position the arms correctly. So bring the arms like this, and then I believe this one goes straight down like this, and I believe this one goes like that, almost like he's doing an Ultraman attack. Then you'll bring this in, and this clicks back on there. So flip this around. First of all, put this back in here. Then this has to disconnect from that and flip up. This goes like this. This comes around. And there we go. Okay, that actually, I think, worked out much better than last time. The first time I did it, it was a mess. And it was very difficult. Then you're going to bring the crane down. The crane is going to split apart. Open up like this. And then these sections are going to fold down like this. And it's going to form a giant chest shield, which I think actually looks really, really cool. Now, unfortunately, this head does not spin from side to side. Are these? There you go. That one wasn't all the way in. There we go. Now we're good. So now we're going to come and bring truck back in. And there are 3 connection spots. So there is a circular peg here. There is a rectangular peg there. And then there's a peg spot there. So this peg will go in here. This spot is for this. And this goes in there. So I think I might actually take this off temporarily just because it'll be easier to make sure these connections line up without that. So peg that in. Peg this in here. Peg this in here. And peg this in here. And I think it's kind of neat. There's actually little divots on the forearms of truck for the wheels from cranes to sit into. That's actually really neat, and that's very well planned, I think. So push that in, and then you can drop this back down, and then we can go ahead and peg this back in here like so. And there we go. We have pretty much the entire torso and upper thighs of our combined robot. Alright, so now we have a forklift and excavator, and once again, we're going to remove the weapons. And then we're just going to basically transform them back into vehicle mode because they're basically just the vehicle modes just hanging out. So flip this up. This is going to flip down. At this point, you want to flip this down, and then this has to accordion out like this. And then you want this to be sticking straight out. This is going to come down, and then these 2 tabs here on the sides are going to peg in to the treads here. So this is going to pop on like that. And then at this point, you just flip this head up like that. This is going to pop down. And I think that goes like that. The arm configurations, in all honesty, don't really matter, but there you go. And then you just kind of want to tuck this up as best you can, something like that. So here is your one arm, and I think we turn it like this, and even though this is hollow, I think this gives you the best. Does this give you, see, because I think on this side you can't get you can't get the elbow bend. So if you want the elbow bend, like you have a joint here, but if you want the second joint here, then you have to expose the hollow side. So it's really just your preference. If you want to spin this around and just use the one elbow, you can. So it's up to you. I guess I'll leave it like this, but it's a shame that you can't continue to go with that. Now, I have 2 left hands, so this guy's going to have to get the left hand that doesn't have the thumb, and I'm just going to pop that in there, and there is my one arm. So now for Forklift, we're going to transform him back as well. Flip this around. This will pop down. All of this will pop down. This will pop out. I have to put this straight out and then rotate this. You always want the connections to be vertical instead of horizontal, if that makes sense. This comes down. This will peg in the same way we did for Excavator. And then really just kind of push this up. I don't think this will turn around. Yeah, it doesn't turn around enough to make a difference. So pop this back like this. Flip up the giant eyeballs. Pop them together like so. And then really you can just do what you want with that. Something like that maybe. And then we'll turn this like this. And then he actually gets the one hand that works. And there you go. Those are our 2 arms. So let's go ahead and bring them all together. So everything snaps together fairly simply. I mean, the feet and the legs here, they just click right in. No problem whatsoever with those. There we go. Whoops, this came undone. Now, the arms can be a little difficult, honestly. Basically, you have these 2 connections right here, which are going to pop onto these 2 spots right here on the side. But because of the way the waist has to come together, this piece gets in the way. So what I find is a little easy is to kind of turn this so that that's kind of out of the way. And then you have to clip this in. And then you can kind of bring it back. So that's a little bit easier. This one usually pops in no problem. So pop this in like so. And there we go. There is our Not Devastator. So I'm going to try to move this so you can actually see him all in frame at the same time. He's very tall, honestly. I would say he's probably around 10 inches tall. Do I have anything I can compare him to? Here is Transformers Voyager class Grapple, which is probably 6 inches tall. So I would say this guy is maybe 10 to 12, if I had to say something like this. Here is Moon Studio Dark Knight, which is one of the train bots, so he's even taller than him. So he's a big boy. I would say, yeah, I'd say he's probably a foot tall. Probably somewhere in that arena. But I think he's kind of cool. He doesn't have a ton in the way of articulation, honestly. You know, you have the little bit of movement here in the legs. I guess you could still technically kick side to side if you stretch that out, but I probably would not because it would probably start to fall over. The arms can swivel. You have the little elbows here I talked about. You can move the hands at the wrists. You know, if you have the hand that actually has a thumb, then you could close it around there. But they do have the index finger is single, and then the rest of the fingers are together. So 2 different hinges there. Yeah, overall, I think he's kind of cool, honestly. He stands fairly well. He holds together fairly well. I was a little bit afraid because I felt like the feet weren't 100% stable when I was transforming them. But, I mean, just to, like, grab him, like, he doesn't fall apart. I'm shaking him. He's not rickety or anything like that. He stands pretty well. The only other thing I wish there was some way to put all the weapons together. I think that would have been really cool to try to put these together. And I'm kind of looking at this and seeing if there's some kind of way, but I really don't see anything. I could be wrong. The directions definitely did not say anything about the weapons combining in any way. So that would have been cool. I just think if you could have put these together to make some kind of giant sword for this guy, I think that would have been neat. But other than that, I mean, it's a silly little, you know, I don't want to use the term knockoff, because knockoffs to me are when you make a cheaper version of an established toy. This is kind of its own thing. This is its own new thing. It's not really knocking off. I mean, it's very similar to Devastator, obviously, but it's not the same mold as Devastator. So I can't really say it's knocking off Devastator. It's inspired by Devastator, surely. But it's fun. I kind of like it. Like I said, it's not the best plastic quality, but it's not the worst. The paint applications, for the most part, I think are nice. There's definitely some flubs, some splotches where it's worn off some places, got spilled on other places where it's not supposed to be, so just keep that in mind. But for $25 for a set of 6 figures that are around the size of a Transformers Deluxe class figure, now they're not nearly as complicated or intricate as a Transformers Deluxe class figure, but I think it's fun. I mean, it's a, you know, $4 to $5 a piece for these things, and I mean for each individual robot, and I feel like they're worth $4 to $5. I think honestly, all told, this is fun. I like it. I think it's like I said, the multicolored facet of it is giving me Sentai / Power Ranger vibes. So it's like a Power Ranger Devastator crossover, and what's not to love about that? And then they threw in some giant googly Disney car eyes on all the vehicles as well. So it's quite the mashup. But I think it's fun. Like I said, it's definitely not a high quality toy, but it's fairly solid. It holds together well. The transformations for the individual robot modes and vehicle modes are not too complicated. They hold together pretty well in both modes. It's got a decent amount of articulation per individual robot. I like that they each have their own individual weapon. Yeah, I think if you just manage your expectations going into it, this thing can be a lot of fun. So I have to say, those 2 reviews on the Amazon listing were wrong. This is not garbage. You can buy this and have fun with it. Just know what you're getting into. I mean, you know, I did get one of the wrong hands, and I could try to contact somebody about that, but I'm not going to. I think I just have to know what I'm getting into when you buy these types of things. But it's fun. It's goofy. It's stupid. It's fun. I kind of like it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, thank you so much for watching.